Chair, Mr. Ngo, Deputy Minister Quattro and Tamini in Cape Town, Director General Moketsi Ramasori in absentia, senior managers present, members of the media, good afternoon. A month ago, we met to appraise the nation relating to land reform, in particular the announcement made by President Ramaphosa in his first. President Ramaphosa affirmed government's commitment to accelerate our land redistribution program, not only to redress a grave historical injustice, but also to bring more land available for cultivation. As we all may appreciate, land and industrialization and settlement. Land reform therefore plays a role in enabling those who have been historically disadvantaged to have them a foothold in economic participation. The process of reform also ensure cohesion and inclusion amongst our society. Government has itself into the agricultural by expression support from a number of organizations who have received institution of land redistribution. The economic recovery Africa. In order to achieve as seen in the enabling and is creating negative perception from would-be investors in this sector. Irrigation for inclusive growth. We have noted in the past week, the majority of farmers have been impacted by the failures that sadly while Northern Cape to experience the drought presently. We thank the provincial governments of the two provinces for the speedy reaction in assessing the damage and give immediate relief while looking at the long-term assistance. We also thank farmer organizations for partnering with the provincial governments in providing fodder and other forms of support to those who are affected. Aware that as okay, farm workers are hard. We hope humanitarian needs of all. The expropriation bill has tabled with the Constitution, creating clear framework on how for public purpose. It is most important that we all need to familiarize ourselves with this legislation as lawmakers craft the legislation that will become part of our legal framework. On the 1st of October 2020, we gave an update on the in the State of the Nation briefing, and will be advertising 4 farms across the country. The 15th one of that have got state land that is available for release, we will continue to ensure that the needs of those producers in these provinces do find support from some of the programs of government in distribution. During the announcement, we indicate state land in question of land that is currently individuals and communities residing in state land with any form of payment, either be they lease agreements or even tenure security that confirms that this land belongs to those communities. Some of them who have been working in this land and have not any formal mission in terms of they've got the right to continue use and utilize it for agricultural development. We indicated to us these communities or individuals the proper procedure for and regularization enabled by who being undertaken in that particular. Questions have been raised. Question by sector that we have spoken about refer to government earmarked for the consolidation and was then held by the South African Development Trust. Of these lands, hectares depending on the ability on the land. These lands reflects management company. That in of our where some of these processes finished. After 1994, an attempt was made to transfer some of these to farmers. Fortunately, this process, in order to fund rights of these various communities, is critical. Here, these refer also to one case that has been very topical in our country, such as the Rahasa matter. It took government for so many. The advertisement of properties, including those that have communities, is to ensure its transparency and that government is able to address the legal issues that are necessary to confirm the rights from a process that was left hanging. For instance, you have got certain farms where they were abandoned and there were farm dwellers and farm workers, and other people came into those lands and nothing was actually done to ensure that their security is clearly defined. So we're trying to deal with all of those issues. And in our view, it's an important process of land reform to ensure that we affirm those rights to the individuals concerned. Following this press briefing and the advert that had been made, we've received online applications amounting to about 5,838, which include cooperatives and also individual farmers. A number of physical applications have also been received and will be consolidated after the closing date as we speak. There are many people who are still approaching our offices to actually deliver their applications. The land rights inquiry has commenced, and a number of farm dwellers, farmers, and communities have been met by our officials. The process will continue until such time that all state-owned land has been recorded and accounted for. There have been allegations publicly about government officials who have written letters of evictions to individuals and communities on state land. In some instances, there have been allegations of officials demanding bribes of hundreds of thousands of rands to access such land. This conduct is unacceptable and criminal. We have advised our communities to bring these issues to the office of the Acting Director General for attention and to the nearest police station. It is important to emphasize that the main purpose of this process of land verification is not to destabilize farmers who have been farming and producing in farms in the past, but to put in place a state land administration and management system that ensures security of land tenure, stability, and provide an opportunity for sustainable food security and economic growth. This will also enable government to develop and implement targeted and sustainable support to small, emerging, and commercial farmers into active participants in the economic market. We therefore urge all South Africans to seize this opportunity and submit their applications online or at our provincial offices, given that we are nearing the closing date. But we also hope that this process will ensure that those who might have had concerns, their concerns have now been attended to, so that they know that the land verification process and the advertisement of the farms in questions where there might be communities does not seek to remove those people, but is to actually confirm their rights on that land. We will continue to communicate on the screening, assessment process that will follow towards finalization of this process. And I hope that we will walk this journey with you as the media community, so that at any given time, our communities appreciate how far we're going, what are the challenges, if any, but also what are the opportunities that actually are there, that remain, that can be addressed by our various communities. Thank you very much for listening. We'll be ready to take questions.
Thank you very much, Minister. Colleagues, here we go. Let's start with the questions from the floor here before we go to WhatsApp. SABC.
Thank you so much, Minister. I'd like to find out the duration of the land rights inquiry. During that period, what will be happening to those some dwellers, those that stay in the park, that they say we don't know their status?
Thank you, thank you. Any other question? Let's go to the WhatsApp. Ignatius?
There's no questions.
No. Okay, Minister, can you take that one for now?
Thank you very much for that question. We actually see this process as an ongoing process. It has already started. So already we know in a number of provinces where those communities are. We've got also the record of how long they have been there on the land, given the interactions that we've been having with them. And in our view, these are the communities who we will prioritize in terms of the approval process and the confirmation of their land rights.
Ignatius, do you have any?
No questions.
It seems, Minister, it was clear. Any other question from the floor? Yes, Perry?
Good afternoon, Minister. Barry Bateman from ENCA. Perhaps you're looking at the number, you said there have been 5,838 applications. Are you encouraged by this number? I mean, it does seem like quite a lot of people coming forward in the short period of time since the announcement. Are you able to say anything more about the type of people that are applying? Are these people that are on the land already? You briefly mentioned, I think, the companies and various individuals. But can you tell us a little bit more about the kinds of people that have come forward? And in terms of the application process, I think we discussed it at the previous briefing, what are the requirements for an individual or a company to apply for this particular land? Thank you.
Thanks. Before, Minister, there's another one from Luyolo from Business Live. How far is the land right inquiry process regarding the Quattro farms issue in the Eastern Cape? Thanks, Minister.
Thank you very much. I will start with the question on the floor. What are the types of applicants that we are having? And what requirements do those need to have? I must say that the applicants that we're receiving are those people who, some of them are farming on communal areas in small pieces of land. As you know, that the competition for both grazing and cropping in communal areas is actually one of the challenges. So those are some of the people that we're getting, but also some of them are young people who would like to enter into the agricultural space. Some of them, in the majority, and I must say, it's women who actually have either been having farm gardens in the common age areas or even in the back gardens, who would like to actually have access to more land and expand. So they actually comprise a number of, or rather, various types of farmers. Some of them are actually farmers who either are leasing private land, who would now to have access to land of their own. So it's a multiplicity. Some of them are people, as I said, who either were on what was known previously under the Department of Agriculture in the early 90s were called Fala land. Those who were actually given that land by the South African Development Trust at the time, but they've never had any form of tenure or rather confirming of leases thereafter. I mean, processes were left hanging, they continued to farm, but they never had paper. So it's those types of applications that we are receiving. The question that has been asked by Business Live, I'm not sure that it's the same gentleman who raised the question yesterday, but the process of land inquiry in Quattro is actually almost complete and will be made available because it was an inquiry process arising out of the parliamentary process which was raised about the status. And I think it's important for me to give a little bit of history on the Quattro farms in the Eastern Cape. These were farms that were actually bought by the then South African government for consolidation of the Transkei. Some of them, until 94, they were still farmed by the farmers, commercial farmers at the time, who then left, you know, those farms with labor tenants, but some of them were already allocated to certain individuals by the then Transkei government for farming purposes. So you have got a multiplicity of tenure, you know, rights that are there. So you've got on one hand your former farm workers, your former farm labor or labor tenants as we'll call them. Some of them were actually new farmers that were coming in. You also had in the same area the Quattro community who had also applied for restitution over the Quattro farms. And from the commission side, that application of restitution never actually met the criteria. You have had community members who are there who formed themselves into a structure. They call themselves CPA, even though in terms of the CPA legislation, they are not actually registered as a CPA, but they are a structure that is representative of certain individuals who also have a claim on that land and they would want the land to be transferred to them. So what necessitated the land inquiry was this multiplicity of interests that have been expressed by various people who all of them were having one form or other of a claim on the same pieces of land that are there, which are still state land. So that land inquiry had actually, you know, been undertaken by government to establish who and what forms of land rights each of those communities have and find the best way of how we resolve that. And I hope that will assist the business day journalist.
Thanks, thank you very much, Minister. Thanks, Perry. Ignatius, can you take the ones from WhatsApp?
Thanks, Reggie. I have Ed Stoddard from Business Memory. The land rights process will continue until such time that all state-owned land has been recorded and accounted. Can I ask, is the government uncertain how much land is in state hands? And I have Sibo Mabena from The Citizen. Are there cases of alleged bribery against government officials that have been brought forward that the minister is aware of? Will the department look into allegations that farmers who have been running successful establishments for decades have also received eviction letters? And also, in some cases, the farmers who have received eviction letters knew who would take over their farms, despite the fact that the process was still open. I have another question from Carol Payton from Business Day. Some of these people are destitute and are not farming. Will they be assisted to acquire farming inputs? And secondly, the main vehicle to acquire land as a community is to form a CPA. But these CPA split and many are dysfunctional. What is your solution to this problem, which is creeping land reform? And I have another question.
Can we, Minister, can we answer those few and then we take the rest? Because it seems there are many.
I'll just have to stand and wait for yeah. Thank you very much. With regards to the issue of the land inquiry, which we raised earlier, yes, we will indeed continue to make an assessment where the issues of land are concerned in terms of how much of that is state land, who has it, what was the form of receiving that state land. And remember that also state land refers to the land that is managed by Public Works, which has been given to different departments for use. And in certain instances, and I'll make one case where we received a phone call, for instance, from one of the farmers around Kwamhlanga area, who actually said, I have been managing this land. It used to be used for a college of police, and it was left unattended. So we quickly, after having received that information, spoke to the Minister of Public Works on the case in question, which was then attended to. So there are certain instances where you'd find that there may be pockets of state land which is now completely encumbered, and maybe nobody knows exactly whether this was state land or not state land. And I think this process and talking about it is enabling us to know, okay, so this is state land and it has been either a village or in certain instances invaded by people who are either farming on that one. So that land inquiry process is a necessary part of land administration, if I may call it that way. Whether we've received allegations that some of our officials are extorting money from people for this process. We have had a question in Parliament as part of the follow-up question last week, for instance, where such a matter was raised. And formally, with the department, we haven't had any receipt of such. But we did indicate that if somebody has information to this effect, and that's why I've mentioned it in my statement even today, that where such allegations can be brought to us in terms of who is the official, which office, in which province, we will be able to deal with those because, as you know, President has been very emphatic about issues of corruption. And also the panel, the advisory panel on land reform, this is one of the matters that they had been raised as allegations that have been coming up where issues of corruption were indicated upon. So it's important that we deal with those so that such officials are actually brought to book. The last question is, will government be able to assist some of these people who will receive state land as Patron was saying that some of them are destitute and therefore how will government assist them? Yes, we will, as we had in terms of our COVID-19 intervention, but also different provincial departments through the Fetsahlala Ilima program and the Comprehensive Agricultural Support Program are doing it. One of the things we have said is that everybody who get access to land, going forward, we will make sure that those people accept to subject themselves to training. We will make sure that those people actually are full-time, not cell phone farmers that only go to see their farms and they think the land looks beautiful, do nothing about it. So we want people who are actually going to work the land productively. So our support is important as government to give a kickstart to those people in order for them to succeed. Now I'm waiting for the other one on CPAs. It's not a given that all land holdings by government where people want to acquire land are forced into a CPA. No, that's not true. Where you have had, a legal entity as community property association, that's where people have received as a collective. And you remember that in 1994, some people opted for trusts as a form of entity to hold the land in question. Others later, when government created the legal instrument as part of the Communal Property Association, that legislation enabled people to acquire that land as a group and manage it, and then appoint an executive that will actually, on a yearly basis, report back to communities about how they are utilizing this land, and if their development needs, decide as a community how they deal with it. On their constitution, depending either 3 years or 5 years, they will then go for the annual general meeting that will be an elective conference for a new CPA, but as a new executive. But in most instances, there have been problems where either communities differ on the use of land or partnership in instances and collapse in terms of relationship. Sometimes other executives live longer and don't call annual meetings to report back to communities. Some of them, actually, the communities come and request that we put them under administration because they are no more dealing with the issues of land on the interest of the communities. So these are the difficulties that we've been working on in respect of the CPAs particularly. But it is not the form that government will say we prescribe for who wants to acquire land. I mean, there's a lot of individuals that are using state land where lease for 30 years have been given to individuals or to companies.
Okay. I have a question, Minister, from Maina Matsimela from Zanzi Agriculture Talk.
Yep.
Minister, now that it's public knowledge that some of the farms advertised are currently being occupied, and taking into consideration the fact that some applicants have already turned the farms into their homes, how did applications from such farmers, more especially the ones that fail dismally in production, regardless of several government interventions? Will the department be approving their applications regardless, and why? If not, has the department thought of a plan to house them elsewhere, since some might have nowhere to go? I have another question. Secondly, what will be the used in judging new applicants against the ones that have been occupying farms and producing? Will preference be given to the ones that already occupying, or the strength of new applicants' business plans be considered?
Well, thank you very much from Umzansi. I'm not sure specifically whether some of these questions relate to the land in question that we're talking about, given the background that he's given on that question. You know, a majority of the farms that we're talking about, some of them have been empty. Others have had farmers who have been farming, as I've indicated, what was called SADT or Fala land before. Some of them, villages, are using it as communal grazing land. And inquiry process in each case. And as we've said, this process does not seek to evict people, but rather is to regularize the processes where people were actually given land, no follow-up in terms of, confirmation whether this land is... And as I've said, that a lot of this land was bought by the then government prior 1994 for consolidation of homelands. And you know that there was fierce opposition by a majority of South Africans against the homeland system. So some of those farms were never transferred to those consolidated homelands, as it were. They remained in the custodian of the South African Development Trust, which farmed that land by giving allocations to farmers, some of them at 10 hectares, others even more hectares for them to farm. After 1994, as I indicated in my statement, government, through the Department of Agriculture that time on Fala land, tried to start the process of ensuring that those farmers who have been there in those lands for many years should be assisted to formalize and be able to get security of tenure. But that process was interrupted and never finished. So in our process of analysis, and as this land inquiry, we would look at each circumstance and see how best we support. For instance, you can't uproot somebody who's already farming productively on that land. And that is why we said those people with good business plan who qualify but who may not be able to qualify on this particular property because there are farmers who are already farming. Through our proactive land acquisition farms, we will be able to assist those people. So that from Zanzi.
There's a follow-up on WhatsApp, Minister.
Thanks, Minister. There's a follow-up question from Ed Sturat from Business Maverick. He's saying, does the department have the capacity now to screen these applications in a timely and transparent manner? There have been administrative challenges in the past which have hampered the land reform process.
Yes, we do. And we've also mobilized other stakeholders to ensure that the process is not doubted, is actually transparent. We've actually, even before the advertisement, we engaged a number of stakeholders, farmers' organization, non-government organization in the land and agricultural space. We've also spoken to faith-based organization, UN Women who have been working with a number of women's organizations, SAWID, as well as the Food and Agriculture Organization. And we've done that because we do need this capacity of individuals who would work with us in ensuring that the process is credible, is transparent, and everybody can actually feel that the matters was attended to. Secondly, we've also set up independent panels involve our government officials who would actually deal with issues of objections and disputes so that indeed there is quality assurance in the processes that we undertake.
Let's take you, sir.
Thank you. My name is Lazarus from Critical Media. Minister, on the application forms, this farms, they don't state farming is good for. I can have a good business plan in applying for this land. For crop farming, when I apply, I will find this land is good for livestock farming. Because you can't even go and visit that farm to see where it has a borehole, it has water, or it's good for crop farming. So the challenge is, I can apply. Well, I'm a livestock farmer. Where else you're going to give me the crop farm? So I think that's where the challenge would be.
Yes, I agree that that may be the challenge in terms of whether the land in question that an individual applies for is for grazing or for crop farming. Obviously, in the engagement with the various individual applications and with the people concerned, if the farm in question is not suitable for the needs of that farmer, that communication and engagement with the farmer concerned will be actually undertaken to advise the farmer that this land in question is for agriculture. But in most instances, what we found is that a majority of people who have applications to this land are coming from the communities nearby who actually know what suitability that land is for. But we will address it. Unless there's a specific farm that you're interested in.
Yes, I've tried to go and see.
Yes.
I was told that I can't go in and see unless if I will be shortlisted to come and view the farm.
Well, property is a private property. If there was somebody in the farm, I think it would have been important for you to engage with the farmer concerned to say, as you know, this land is full and would want to see what it is for. Or if there's nobody on that land, it's vacant piece of land, talk to our government officials who you to the farm if you'd want to see. I don't think that is a difficult or should be a difficulty actually.
Okay, it seems I covered. You have something on, right?
Well, thank you very much. We will continue, as I said, that this is just but one. We will continue to appraise all of you about this process as we are going forward. Thank you very much once again.
Colleagues,